All right, Chiefs, it's the prop Beaver, and I'm back in action. Happy to be back. We had a few videos on the channel last year until things got super hectic, but hoping to put more content out this year. And I'm going to start it off with a players futures videos. I got some guys in my mind that have some really high highs for and some really low lows. So let's go ahead and get into the picks that we're making today.
Welcome to the source. The source. Hey, get the source.
All right, Chiefs. Got my first two picks, and I think you may call me a crazy man, but I'm just going to hit you with them. So we got Kirk Cousins over 4,199.5 passing yards at minus 115. You could get that on BetMGM, throwing a half unit on that. And then the second play I'm going to be taking is Kirk Cousins over 30.5 passing touchdowns. That's going to be minus 118 on FanDuel. I'm putting a half unit on that. And before you turn off this video, let me explain myself. Do not let the public perception of Kirk Cousins ruin what is actually happening in reality for you, because Kirk Cousins is really not a bad quarterback. Now he receives a massive coaching upgrade, and I really like Kevin O'Connell. This is a guy that Sean McVay, had he left for that Amazon broadcast job, was going to give the team to Kevin O'Connell. That's how much he trusted the guy. And I think there's plenty of reason to trust the guy. As we saw last season, Matthew Stafford came in with the Rams and did damage. But how did he do the season before heading to the Rams and O'Connell? Well, he had just 4,084 yards and 26 touchdowns. Nothing too sexy. Just 1 year in McConnell's system with Kupp and some real talent around him, and guess what happens? The guy has 4,886 yards and a whopping 41 touchdowns. Now, Kirk Cousins isn't the same talent as Matthew Stafford, but I don't think he's necessarily too far behind. Kirk Cousins statistically has turned in 4 great seasons in a row. I mean, he was top 10 in passing yards all 4 seasons. He was top 10 in PFF grade all 4 seasons. And he was top 10 in touchdowns 3 of those 4 seasons. So he's shown that he could hit these marks before, and now he's going to have an offensive guru at coach instead of Mike Zimmer's miserable ass. I liked what I'm getting there. And here's the real reason why I really like that touchdown total. And that's because the Rams were very, very aggressive at passing in the red zone. I mean, let me just read you these stats here. Stafford was second in touchdowns and third in attempts inside the 10. So that's something right there. And then if we go to inside the 20, Stafford was first in touchdowns, first in yards, and then third in attempts. So it shows that even in the end zone, they were heavily using the quarterback. Nice thing to note when we got Kirk Cousins at a low total here. Finally, I'm going to just end this with telling you guys that I have a ton of faith in Justin Jefferson. I think he's the best receiver in the NFL going. I have a ton of faith in Thielen come back healthy this year. You got nice options like KJ Osborne, laughably so. Jalen Reagor as a 4 is not a bad option. And then Irv Smith too. So I feel like there's a lot of room for improvement from Kirk Cousins from the previous 4 seasons, and he was good then. I think we're going to see Kirk Cousins' best campaign ever. And that's why on top of the 2 picks that I put up today, I'm throwing in the long shot, baby. Give me Kirk Cousins to lead the league in touchdowns at plus 2,000. I got that on DK, and I mean, guys, if you're going to go for the most passing touchdowns, why would I go with something square? I think that Kirk Cousins has a realistic shot of hitting it. Nobody's going to be betting it. And, who knows? We'll see. Second guy I want to talk about is Ryan Tannehill. And I'm going under 22.5 passing TDs for him at minus 134 on Barstool. And I'm putting a full unit on that bad boy. I am incredibly down on this Titans offense. So we kind of got glimpses of what this Tennessee offense would look like last year when A.J. Brown was out. And then you had Julio Jones out. And your number 1 receiver was Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. I mean, it's not a pretty picture for Tannehill this year, having his number 1 is Robert Woods, who I love, but come on, not a red zone threat. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, so he's fine, but he's nothing exemplary. He'd probably be a 3 or 4 on most other squads. And then Austin Hooper, who I also like, but the problem is he doesn't get it done in the red zone. So So how is he going to hit this 22.5 number when he has nobody that catches touchdowns? Tannehill had 21 touchdowns last year, right? So that's already under this total. But now we need to go ahead and look at who he's lost these past few years. So he just lost A.J. Brown, as we all know. That's the obvious one. He accounted for 24 of Tannehill's 74 touchdowns as a Tennessee Titan. That's around 31.5%. So that's a big loss right there, right? But we also need to take into account the previous season's losses with Jonnu Smith and Corey Davis. So when you take those three out of that offense, that's 55% of Tannehill's touchdowns as a Tennessee Titan. And as I was saying earlier, Robert Woods, max amount of TDs he's had in a year, 6. Austin Hooper, max amount of TDs he's had in a year, 6. Westbrook, I mean, the guy had 4 last year in limited play, I'll give him that, but nobody's really looking to guard him in the end zone. So, I mean, as I'm saying, guys, there's really not much in terms of proven talent and red zone talent specifically for Tannehill to throw to. Not to mention, honestly, the fact that the offensive line is the worst unit they're going to be putting out, honestly, since Derrick Henry got there. So it's not exactly ideal to pass the ball to weak receivers behind a weak line. I see Tennessee just sticking to pounding the rock and praying to God that Derrick Henry doesn't get injured. And as a result of that, I think the clock's going to run a lot, and there's really not going to be many pass attempts inside the 20, inside the 10. I have to go with the under here for Ryan Tannehill. It's the lowest passing total under on the board, and I still have to go with it. Ryan Tannehill, I'm sorry, I love you, buddy, but maybe it's Malik Willie season? All right, now moving on to running backs. Everybody wants to talk about Jamar Chase, Burrow, Everybody's kissing Joe Burrow and Mr. Jamar Chase. I'm here to tell you that Joe Mixon, I think, actually is going to put up numbers this year. And that's why I'm going with Joe Mixon over 1,049.5 rushing yards at -115, and I'm putting a full unit for that on MGM. Now here's why. Everybody wants to talk about Burrow and Chase. I had just said that, but let's go ahead and realize how important that rushing game was into letting Joe Burrow open up and attack guys like Higgins and Chase down the field. Because, I mean, Joe Mixon was 3rd in rushing yards last year. I mean, did you know that? And not only was he 3rd in rushing yards, but he was 3rd in attempts behind an atrocious O-line that only held him to 4.1 yards per carry. So he wasn't even efficient and still hit this mark today with ease. And what's the first thing the Bengals did this offseason? They immediately overhauled that offensive line, bringing in guys like La'el Collins, Alex Kappa, and Ted Karras to really bolster that front 5, and I really like the guys they got. I mean, I'll tell you what, it's a hell of an improvement over Riley Reif, Jackson Carman, who's laughably bad, Quentin Spain, and Trey Hopkins. I mean, the upgrade is huge. And now, Mixon's already hit this his past 3 or 4 seasons. The only real concern here is injury, which, honestly, behind a better O-line, you shouldn't have to worry about. And with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd on the outside, I mean, how can you put 8 in the box against this guy? It's simply never going to occur. So while Mixon may see a small dip in carries from last year, I think that the efficiency is going to be there, and it's going to carry us to the promised land. So that's why I'm going to go with Mixon over his rushing total here, man. I really think that Mixon has a nice opportunity this year, and I think he plans on taking advantage of it. On to the next guy. All right, Chiefs. This is my single favorite guy to talk about, and I'm going over for him. My favorite breakout prospect. I'm going Brandon Ayuk. I have him going over 749.5 receiving yards here, -115, putting a full unit on that on BetMGM. Let me tell you why. I feel like everybody, because of the delay, let's just call it, I'll get into that a bit later, the delay to Ayuk's season, has forgotten just how good this kid was in his first year with Nick Mullins. I mean, in just 14 games, he had 60 catches, 5 TDs, 748 yards, and a nice 12.5 yards per reception. And dude, that was with Nick Mullins for 14 games. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm part of the Nick Mullins fan club, but Jesus, you're putting those numbers in a limited sample size with Nick Mullins. Quite impressive. Let's talk about the little vacation he had to start the year last year. He didn't come into camp in shape. He looked terrible. And Kyle Shanahan was like, listen, buddy, I don't give a damn how talented you are. You're not playing if you're in the shape. So Ayuk, through the first 6 or 7 weeks of the season, had just 16 targets. 16 targets! But this is what I need you people to remember. It's the second half of the year for Ayuk. After making it out of the doghouse, I mean, the guy was seeing 6.68 targets a game. He was grabbing 4.3 receptions, and this is the most impressive part for me. He was reeling in 66.4 yards per game, essentially on 4 receptions. That's nearly a 15.6 yard per reception rate. That's very impressive. And during that span I had just mentioned, let's just look at the ranks of where Ayuk was amongst receivers in the league. I mean, during the second half of the season, he was 9th in receiving yards, 10th in yards per reception, 13th in yards per route run, and 6th in yards after contact per reception. This guy's simply a playmaker and not a guy they can afford to have sitting on the bench. They really need him this year, and wow, have the reviews from camp been good. According to Eric Branch, he's been labeled to be poised for a breakout third season, and ironically enough, Shanahan this season has called him a leader of the team. That is what we want to hear. Another note from a guy that I really respect, Brett Coleman, creator of the Film Room. He was at 49ers camp, and I was listening to a podcast, and he was basically telling us that this man was unguardable. He was shredded out of his mind. And I've seen Trey Lance play. He doesn't go for the easy third down. He likes to go for that play downfield that has yard after catch potential. I really think that the Brandon Ayuk Trey Lance combo is a match made in heaven. So as much as people love their Debo in San Francisco, I love Brandon Ayuk much more. And I think that at this low number of 749.5, a number he missed by just 1 yard in his first season with Nick Mullen, and then went over last season despite seeing an average of 2.2 targets per game through the first 7. I think a full year with Trey Lance, even if Trey Lance likes to run the ball a lot, is still a great bet at the value. The guys that runs the sim have him going for 900 plus. Give me Brandon Ayuk over the receiving total. I love that, man. And the next wide receiver we're going to talk about is another guy that I absolutely love this season. Mike Williams, baby. We're going over 6.5 receiving touchdowns on DraftKings, and we're going to do that at -140 for a full unit. Let's get into why I think he could potentially lead the NFL in touchdowns this year. Williams was 11th in red zone targets last year, but that only led to 4 touchdowns. Kind of weak. Thankfully, due to his big playability, the guy still walked away with 9 touchdowns, 2 more than we need for this total. What if I told you he could be in for an even bigger season this year? Just 31.8% of the red zone targets that Mike Williams saw were completed. That was by far the lowest of the top 20 and over 24% lower than anybody else in that range. But if he caught just 50%, right? 50% of those red zone targets, that projects out to be 6 touchdowns, and that's just 1 shy of our total without him making any big explosive plays that he's known to do. Now, after last season's performance, he's actually hit this in 2 of 4 seasons already, and he's 1-1 in seasons without that piece of dog crap Anthony Lynn at the helm. Things are looking to be on the up and up here. With the state of the AFC West how it is right now, they're going to be in a lot of shootouts, and with Mike Williams' big frame, I just see him getting more of the looks in the end zone. Obviously, everybody's going to give their respects to Keenan Allen, but I think that works more in Mike Williams' favor. If defensive coverages want to lean towards more focus with Keenan Allen, then Mike Williams, a big body, is going to make the most of that lesser coverage, and I think he's going to teach them a few lessons too. With Justin Herbert being the potential MVP this year, and me personally being all over the Chargers this year, it's hard for me not to believe that Mike Williams could hit a touchdown total that's this low with that body, with that frame, with that amount of targets. I mean, everything in terms of Mike Williams' season last year was elite. I'm expecting a bigger, even better season this year in 2022. And don't be surprised if Mike Williams is a top 10 receiver this year. For my long shot, I'm going to give you a fat one, guys. A huge one. Mike Williams to lead the league in receiving touchdowns at +4,000. Now, This is simply a regression play. If you were getting that many touchdowns and weren't converting on your red zone targets, what's going to happen if you do start converting on those red zone targets? At plus 4,000, hey, I'm going to give it a shot. And then the final jamoke we have to talk about today is TJ Hawkinson. Listen, TJ, love you, bud. Not feeling the season this year. I'm going to go under 70.5 receptions. I'm getting that at minus 140 on DraftKings, and I think it has some pretty great value here. First off, I mean, Hawkinson's never hit the mark, and now he has the most receiver target competition that he's had in quite a long time. So how is this adding up? This is not the same Lions offense. They came in with Tyrell Williams as their second best receiver and then had him get hurt week 3. This is not a Lions team that has Khalif Raymond in 2 wide receiver sets. This is a very different Lions team. They've added DJ Chark in the offseason, Jamison Williams, and they still have Josh Reynolds on the roster, who I'll talk about in a second. Reynolds actually has receiving experience with Goff from the LA days. He signed mid-season last year and actually had some pretty decent numbers. If we go ahead, he was averaging 6 targets a game, about 4 receptions, and 14.6 yards per reception. So Josh Reynolds actually was a solid receiver last year. So now you have him, who was added after Hawkinson got hurt. That's another target you got to worry about. And then DJ Chark is the main guy who I want to talk about here, because let's not forget who DJ Chark is. Before facing the dreaded wrath of Urban Meyer, was a goddamn phenom. We're talking about a guy with 211 targets, 1,733 receiving yards, and 13 TDs in 2 years in sorry-ass Jacksonville. That man's nice. And then I didn't even get into Amon-Ra St. Brown, who was a target machine at the end of last season, but he was seeing 11, 12 targets a game. So now you got Amon-Ra St. Brown on the field, you got DJ Chark on the field, you got Reynolds on the field, and don't even let me get started about what DeAndre Swift is going to steal in targets. It's not good for TJ Hawkinson. So let me just sum it up and say that I don't think an injury-prone tight end who's missed 9 games over the past 3 seasons, has never hit the mark before, is all of a sudden going to hit it now with Jared Goff, a guy who's never once supported a tight end to hit this mark. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the under on TJ Hawkinson. Not feeling you, bud. That's all for the video today. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to check back to the channel. I mean, I'm going to be having some plays that are going to be going in the VIP. Check out this Blake Snell little ladder that I hit yesterday. Yeah, you like that? That's with the VIPs. So, going to have some VIP parlays and little plus money plays on the saucenetwork.com. And then besides that, I mean, I post my plays for free on the Twitterverse every single day. Follow at Beaver, and I'm going to be dropping that fire every single day. Everybody, have a great day, and let's get amped up for football season. If you're riding with me, I hope that we cash our bets. I plan on it, so let's go out there. Let's have a great weekend. Let's drink some beers.